Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word Live and to the 2019 season preview. Yes, 1 week to go. Exactly, Daniel Philpott in the chat. 1 week to go. Is that the shortest winter we've ever had? It absolutely feels like it. I can't believe we're doing this already. So pleased to see it. This time next week, we'll already know that Lance Stroll has won the first race of the season. Can you believe it? Absolutely incredible. We're going to jump straight into this pretty much because there's loads to get through in this one. Obviously, all the housekeeping you should know from the testing streams. Links in the description to social media. You can donate down there towards the stream as well. Don't forget to subscribe if you are new. And smash that like button if you enjoy what you're hearing, which hopefully should be more structured than the stuff we were doing during testing. Once again, by the way, thank you to everyone for your awesome support during that. It was an incredible 2 weeks. Absolutely loved it. But like I say, I'm going to jump straight into it because we've got so much to get through. I know a couple of people that will be fairly hyped for the new season, starting with Jonty. Good evening, Jonty. A week to go, mate.
Yeah, good evening, Sean. Good evening, everyone. I'm mega hyped for this one. I don't know why. There's not really that much different apart from the new aero, but it's just there's been such a massive build-up. It's great.
I think testing's thrown us all off a little bit as well, hasn't it? So we're all a little bit probably overhyped. You could probably... I'm dancing as I speak right now. I can't wait. I get like a kid at this time of year. And good evening, Dan. Are you looking forward to next week, or are you not really bothered?
What a silly question. If no one is hyped, if a single person is not hyped, then go away, because it's too much now. I can't believe it's a week. It seems like forever since we last had a race, but good evening. Great to be here.
Awesome stuff. We're going to jump straight into it because, like I said to everyone at the start there, we've just got so much to pour through. I thought we'd do it in some kind of order. Whether it'll stay that way, we'll see. But we'll kick it off with the championship fight because that's the one that everyone, I think, really is going to be keeping a close eye on. There's a lot to keep an eye on this season, but certainly the championship battle. We've come out of testing, Jonty, with a lot of question marks over a lot of teams. First off, no team in that top three who we'll assume are, in no particular order, Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari. None of them have been bulletproof. None of them have shown their full speed. And they all seem to be saying that everyone else is quicker than them. So, except for Helmut Marko, who's pretty confident Red Bull are going to dominate everything. But I think this is why I'm so hyped for this season. We just don't know who's where.
No, we really don't. I mean, as you say, if you believe Helmut Marko, then the other 9 teams can go home because Red Bull are going to win by 10 seconds every lap, which is clearly not the case. But you would think Ferrari are the best, but there was so much sandbagging going on from Mercedes. It really is anyone's call.
Yeah, that's the thing that's got me is all the pundits, all the experts in air quotes are saying that Ferrari have got half a second on Red Bull and then Mercedes a third. But there's no way any of that top 3 showed us everything they've got in testing. Absolutely no way, is there?
No, not at all. You can guarantee that the second these cars come out for FP1 on Friday, there will not be the same bits that you've seen during testing. Even on the last day of testing, the front wings will be different, side pods will be different, rear wing will probably be different.
It's a weird one, isn't it, Dan? We talked about it during the testing streams, that trying to pick the top 3, I think we're all pretty confident which 3 teams are going to be in some order, but behind that we haven't got a clue. We'll get onto the midfield a little bit later, but do you think Ferrari come into this season as favourites, even if it is just marginally?
I think so. I think if one team's just going to edge it, I think yes, Ferrari. And then I would put Mercedes number 2. I think, like you just said there, there's a lot of people saying Mercedes could be half a second off the pace. I don't really see that happening. And don't get me wrong, I don't think this is going to be a complete Ferrari walking over everyone else. I think Mercedes is going to be right up there with them. But for me, I think those 2, once again this year, are going to be the main teams to beat. But Honda, blimey, I didn't see that coming at all through winter testing. They look really, really impressive. So, yeah, for me, it's Ferrari that are slightly leading the way at this point.
The thing with Red Bull, though, Dan, is they showed good pace and very good reliability. So Honda appear to, on the face of it, again, it's only testing, but they seem to, on the face of it, have sort of taken another step forward with reliability. So if they can get some power in there, if the power is there, you'd have to say, certainly on tracks like Monaco, Singapore, Mexico, for example, you'd expect Red Bull to at least challenge at those races. So if they can get anywhere near the other 2 teams at other racetracks, then could they be outsiders for the title? Or are we maybe trying to hype it up a little bit too much?
Oh, it would be nice, wouldn't it? It would make an interesting story. But I think their biggest issue last year was reliability. And Renault in testing, they didn't seem to be foolproof again this year. But Honda and Red Bull together seems to work well. And their only major issues seem to be Pierre Gasly not staying on the circuit. So I'm sure that'll be ironed out come Melbourne. So, yeah, why not? I think potentially they could be, because it was looking so rosy. Although in Formula One, it might look rosy, but behind closed doors, you just never know, do you?
No, absolutely not. I mean, in terms of teams, we can sit here second guessing all evening. And we're going to do that because that's what we do here at the F1 Word. We like to speculate, particularly when we get to the midfield. But in that top 3, I don't think anybody's expecting, maybe I'm wrong, Jonty, I don't know if you do, but I'm not expecting anybody to jump in and get into that fight like a Renault or anything. I think we will still have a fairly cut adrift top 3.
Yeah, relatively. I think the gap has closed by at least 2 or 3 tenths, but given what the gap was, it's not going to be enough. The big question is, as we've been saying, what order that top 3 are in. And as you mentioned, the big surprise from Red Bull and Honda was the reliability of that Honda through testing. Even years previous with McLaren and Toro Rosso last year, they went through so many components during the testing period. It's like, yes, they've done this many laps, but they've also used, equivalent of about 10 engines. That didn't seem to be the case this time out. They were doing properly long runs, and there didn't seem to be big gaps between going out, which would indicate changing parts. So it's looking good. And as you said, their big Achilles heel last year was reliability. Was it 11 or 12 races between them where they didn't get anything? As long as they've got that nailed, they're always going to be in a position to pick up from mistakes. And Mercedes and Ferrari were not immune to mistakes last year.
No, absolutely not. I mean, if you were slapping money on it right now, Jonty, what order would you put that top three in?
Ferrari, Mercedes, Red Bull.
Okay, what about you, Dan? Before we get onto the drivers' championship.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with Jonty. I think that's roughly what it's going to be.
Yeah, how boring for us to start the stream and all agree. Yeah, I think that's where we are. I don't think Mercedes showed us anything like what they've got in that car in testing. Equally, neither did Ferrari or Red Bull, but I think Mercedes, listening to the teams, that's what kind of gives it away for me. The last 3 years now, the last 3 tests, if you include this year, we've had from Mercedes. Oh no, we're really struggling. We're gonna be third, and then they rock up to Australia, and then they're nowhere near third. They're clearly one of the top 2, if not the fastest, and then they've won back-to-back championships. So I'm not buying any of that. I'm not buying it at all. So I'd go Ferrari, Mercedes, Red Bull, but not by half a second. I don't think Ferrari are half a second clear of Mercedes. Couple of tenths maybe, which is still a fair amount at the sharp end of the grid, but I don't think it's a full half a second. But drivers' championship battle, 6-way fight. Do we reckon, Dan? Should be, shouldn't it? Yeah, 6-way.
That'd be great, wouldn't it? Slightly too optimistic. Sorry, everyone. I mean, I think 4, or maybe 4, but I'm not including Max or Gasly there. I think for me, Bottas is the big underdog in those top 3 teams, and I think he's going to have a strong season. So I think 4-way fight, and I think it's going to go right down to the wire.
Ooh, you're not including Verstappen or Gasly at all in there?
No. No. I just something for me thinks that over a whole... I think the big issue is that it's his first year with Honda, and I don't want to get too carried away because, look, the reality is there will be some issues because they've not worked together properly before. Yes, they worked with Toro Rosso, but not the full Red Bull team. So I think year 1, I'm still just going to be cautious and say they're not really going to be challenging come the end of the season. So I think that's what it is for me more so.
What are you thinking for the championship battle then? Do you kind of agree with Dan that Red Bull aren't going to quite have enough to get the challenge in there, and that is going to be maybe between both Mercedes driver and both Ferrari driver? Or do you think we're looking at another Vettel versus Hamilton, Hamilton versus Vettel season?
It's tough. As much as I would love there to be as many drivers as possible in that fight, I actually think it's going to be about 3 drivers. Because definitely Hamilton and Vettel, we know that much, and I think Leclerc is going to be pushing and keeping his nose in that fight. The rest of them, Red Bull, I don't think they'll quite be quick enough, even as Max keeps getting better. And Bottas, he could be in there, but he's really got to stamp his mark early. And he's got to be a git. He's got to refuse team orders. He's got to race for himself. And I don't think he's got that in him.
I mean, I hope that Mercedes allow him to race early in the season and don't go straight to team orders, but I suppose it may depend on where Ferrari are. If Ferrari do rock up half a second lap quicker and they feel like Hamilton's their best bet for the Drivers' Championship, they might. I mean, I can't see it because Mercedes always talk about the constructors, don't they, and that being the most important one. But I'm possibly unpopular opinion, but I'm not going to write off Max Verstappen. I'm not going to do it. Not just because I'm terrified of the Orange Army. It's nothing to do with that one. But also because as long as that Honda is somewhere around where sort of the gap to Mercedes and Ferrari was with the Renault last year, so as long as they're somewhere where they were last year and the reliability's in there as well, I think they've got a shot if Max Verstappen keeps his head cool for those first 6 races. If you look at last season, if he'd have had a good start to the year, or the start to the year he had at the end, he'd have been a championship contender, and that's in a car that was good, but the power unit was not good. So I can't rule Max Verstappen out, I suppose, therefore Red Bull for the constructors as well. But I don't know if that's out of hope or expectation. It's possibly more out of hope than anything, but also the fact we don't know. We don't know. Because of this, we keep saying it. I know I've repeated it all winter about these question marks around Honda and Red Bull, but we don't know. They could rock up next week, next Saturday, and lock out the front row. We just don't know.
Could. Yeah, they could. And you have got the point of, with Verstappen, that after his scrappy first few races and ignoring the reliability, he was always sort of top four. Pretty much literally all the time. He got on the podium a hell of a lot last year when the car wasn't braking, when he wasn't braking. And that can make a massive difference, especially with the current point system. And if the fastest lap one comes in, because he does like to go for them a lot.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about, I'm sure chat will like us to talk about fastest lap later and all that with the point. We'll talk about that in a bit, but I just can't write him out of Red Bull. But I think probably, if I'm playing safe, we are looking at Vettel versus Hamilton. For me, maybe Leclerc can get in there, but with Ferrari kind of frustratingly, but I guess understandably, saying that initially they are going to sort of back Vettel, and I think basically what the idea is that Leclerc needs to learn, needs to get into the team and settle and get going. But it's difficult to rule Leclerc or Bottas completely out of it if we're talking about Mercedes and Ferrari having the best two cars in whatever order on the grid. So I don't know, Dan. Maybe I'm trying to. If Bottas is on form as he was at the start of last year, and Leclerc does hit the ground running at Ferrari, can we totally say they're not going to be in the title fight or playing second fiddle?
I think Jonty hit the nail on the head earlier. I think if both of them can start the season off really strongly, not necessarily beating Hamilton or Vettel, but being close, I think then maybe they'll leave it open. But say, I don't know, Bottas isn't performing, are Ferrari then going to allow both of their two drivers to be taking away points from each other when Mercedes are going to obviously give preferential treatment to Hamilton? So I think if both of them start the season well, then I'm hoping the teams will be a little bit more lenient with team orders and strategies and things like that. But I think come Abu Dhabi, I think you're right. I think it will generally be Hamilton. And then I'm still convinced Leclerc could have a good run of it. So I think that's the one maybe I'm a little bit more wary about. But if I was going to put money on it, I think it would be Hamilton and Vettel.
I think as well, even if the title is between Hamilton and Vettel, Bottas, Leclerc, then you could throw the Red Bulls in, could well all have a say in which way it goes, because they could be taking points off each other. If Leclerc has a good race and takes points off Hamilton, then that could help Vettel out, and vice versa if Bottas does the same. So I think even if they don't challenge Bottas and Leclerc, I think they will have a say in which way the title goes. But I'm going to try and keep each segment, or try and keep this to it will be an F1 word hour, by the way. I'm sure chat will explain to anyone who's not sure what an F1 word hour is. But I would say, yeah, I'm going to try and keep it as short as I can for this preview. But I'm going to come straight in, and I'm going to go alphabetically for this one. Dan, money on the table right now, mate. I don't know if you're a betting man, but who's going to win the World Championship?
Lewis Hamilton. That's what I'm going with. I'm not a fanboy. It's just, I think that's the sensible one to go with.
What about you, John T? If you've got to put some cash on it now, who's taking that title?
Well, if you're putting it that way, then anyone but Hamilton, because you're not going to get much of a return.
I knew you'd have to overcomplicate it.
Okay. I'd say Leclerc. That's going to give you a realistic chance, far better odds.
Okay. If you're being realistic rather than looking at it from the betting point of view, who do you think will win the World Championship?
Honestly, I can't call it. I'll stick with Leclerc, just because that's what I want to happen.
Well, there you go, Charles Leclerc. I did this last year. Last year I backed Vettel for the title, And I did it even despite what we saw in winter testing. And I'm going to stand by what I said back in January. I'm going to back Hamilton. Or not back him, but I'm going to say that he will win the World Championship because under pressure, we've already seen he can handle that. He can handle the pressure and deliver a title. And also 88 points, regardless of rules resets or not, is a huge gap. A huge gap for Sebastian Vettel to overturn. And with the top end of that grid possibly being very close and Red Bull getting in the mix, there's going to be a lot of pressure on the drivers. And like I say, Hamilton's already shown he can handle that. And Vettel's shown that he can crack under pressure. So it's not going to be 88 points, I'll call that right now. By the tiniest of margins, Hamilton for me. But I do think Ferrari will take the Constructors. I'll throw that one in there as well. So Owen McGee says, Sean picks Hamilton, automatic Vettel world champion. Yeah, basically I picked Vettel last year and Hamilton won it. So, yeah. Read into that what you will.
Yeah, well, if we're all honest, what we really, really want to happen is for it to be 3 or more drivers with a shot going into Abu Dhabi and let there to be some massive controversy during the last race so that none of the 3 actually finish.
Ooh.
That would be awesome.
That'll do very nicely. Yeah, I'll not do your Constructors Championship predictions because I don't think people are overly fussed on that one. But I am going to move. Look, we've struggled to call that, and I'm now going to move on to what I'm calling best of the rest in my little slides here. But really, it's the midfield battle. So I can't even pick who is where. I can't find a running order in that midfield. I look at them online. I've looked at all the times. People seem to have different opinions. Some say Renault, some say Haas, some say Alfa are right in there as well. I can't call it. So I'm going to go through these in slides based on last year's championship finishing because I can't. You would think, Dan, if you were looking at Formula One logically, which never happens, but if you were, you would think that with the money that they've got behind them, the improvements that we've seen year on year, Renault should be best of the rest. But based on what we saw in testing, it's not that clear cut, and it looks as though, on the face of it at the moment, Haas could be even closer than they were last year to 4th place, if not taking it.
Yeah, I was going to say bizarre, but you would expect with all this backing, with Ricciardo coming into the team, this should be a walk in the park for them. But like you say, Haas and even Alfa Romeo are looking really strong. And with that Ferrari engine, I expect that to be as good, if not better than last year. Renault seems to have already started to have a few issues with their engine in testing. So already a few question marks with Renault. But I think looking at Alfa, looking at Haas, I think over a whole season, I think Renault will have that consistency, and I think that will help them prevail come the end of the season. But question marks on whether certain drivers in certain other teams are going to be able to keep it out of the barriers this year, because that's going to obviously have a huge effect. And I think that is the reason why Renault ended up 4th last year, is someone couldn't get any points for half the season. So I think Renault will comfortably be in 4th, I think. Maybe not at the beginning of the year, but I think when we really get into that lower end of the season, that second half slog, I think they will, similarly to last year, I think they'll be the team that just gets over the line.
Renault have got the lineup as well, haven't they? In Ricciardo
Yeah.
and Hulkenberg. So I think they're looking good. But Haas, if Grosjean, I'll say it, if Grosjean does what Grosjean did in the second half of last year, Haas are looking very good, particularly if Magnussen continues to develop as he has. He was one of the big surprises last year, as I keep saying. So if those two both perform to what we saw at times last year, and as you say, keep themselves out of the barrier, I think Haas could surprise, because they look to have the pace in testing as well, didn't they, Jonty? A lot of the fastest times once adjusted saw Haas knocking on the doors of the top 3. They won't be, obviously, but they're quick.
Maybe. I've got a feeling there was a lot of playing with very, very low fuel levels on the Haas to get the hype up there, because you've got the whole big new sponsorship who are throwing all sorts of ridiculous stuff around on social media. I think there's a hell of a lot of trying to make themselves look much more of a threat than they actually are. which we've seen a lot of this in the past from various teams during testing to really try and get the other teams worried, play the mind games that way going into the start of the season instead of going slow and making people think that you're weak. It can work both ways. I've got a feeling there was just a lot of that going on.
See, I kind of see your point on Haas there and the fuel loaded things, but I seem to recall us having a very similar conversation last March when we thought when Haas came out of testing, everyone went fourth fastest, and we went, don't be ridiculous. And then they kind of surprised us all. So
maybe, they went and locked out the fourth row.
Yeah, when I locked out the fourth row, and if it wasn't for dodgy wheel guns or whatever happened there, then... sorry, it's totally off topic in a way, but I always look back, and I've been watching the Netflix documentary. We'll talk about it later, don't worry. I look back to Australia. They could have been fourth. They should have been fourth in the championship, and it's so frustrating looking back. I know these things happen, but oh my God. Oh, what could have been for Haas. I know fifth was still brilliant last year, but wow. Anyway, little moment over there. But yeah, I think Haas are going to surprise this year, even though they shouldn't because they were up there last year. But then I'm stuck. I think Renault and Haas are going to be in that fight for fourth. Behind that, I genuinely don't know. We said this, didn't we, Dan, during the testing streams? You could just draw straws as to what that running order is because there's no real clear order. I think McLaren looked much better in testing than I was expecting. They could be dark horses. Alpha had a very good first week, not so great in the second week, but they could be dark horses. I keep saying it. Kimi Räikkönen on board as well with that experience. Yeah, Toro Rosso also in there. I don't know. Is there going to be anybody else in that fight for top four? Is it just going to be a case of, apart from Williams, everybody in that fight?
I think so, because even Racing Point, I mean, I sort of forget they're even here, if I'm being totally honest, because, sorry, Racing Point fans, but they were so quiet over testing, did hardly any laps. I mean, only just a few more than Williams come the end of the second week, but constantly in testing they don't look great, and they even prove that they could be fighting up for the top four. And my maths isn't the best, but even if they hadn't have lost their first half of the season points last year, they would have probably been up in that fourth place fight as well. So it really is anyone's game. But I think, like you say, it's more going to come down to, I think, driver lineups and maybe just one fluky, crazy result. Last year, a Gasly's fourth in Bahrain, a Perez's third in Azerbaijan. I think it's going to be one result somewhere across the year that is just going to change everything in that midfield fight, because I really do think it's every single circuit we go to, it's going to be a different order, which is brilliant. And I think it's why we're all looking forward to it so much.
I think they would have been... I've had this number in my head, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there would have been 111 points had they not had the takeover mid-season, which would have put them fifth, ahead of Haas on 93 and Renault on 120 something. So, yeah. I mean, you can't write Racing Point off. They don't do a lot of testing anyway. I said this during the streams during that 2 weeks, that the last couple of years, Force India haven't done a lot of laps in testing. Then they've turned up and had the pace as well. And I think Racing Point have kind of gone down the same route. But who's in that fight then, John T? Is it really all the midfield, or are we just getting a little bit too excited?
It really is, with Racing Point as a question mark, because, as you say, they've not done a lot in testing, and this testing looked particularly troublesome. They were in and out, they were having a lot of issues. It wasn't just a lack of laps. Because even Williams, after their massive problems, there was quite a few days where they were putting in monstrous amounts of laps. Racing Point didn't. So there's a massive question mark over them there. I'm worried that they're just going to take a year to settle in with all of the new ownership and new sponsorship and loads of new personnel coming in, because they've been advertising like crazy to really ramp up the staff numbers. And let's be honest, it would make sense from their point of view to just not focus too much on this year and get everything absolutely settled throughout the operation.
I was actually just going to ask then, do you think maybe focus more on next year, 2020? Because obviously we don't know what they lost out on in that summer in terms of development, because there was a good month, wasn't there, where not a lot happened for them. And a month is a long time in Formula One. So I did wonder if maybe they'd be looking towards 2020. But I don't think they will end up fourth. But I think they'll be in that midfield gaggle is what I'm going to call it this year. It's going to be so close in there. I can't wait. But I want to talk about McLaren just while we've actually got pictures on that make sense. But I do want to talk about McLaren, Jonty, because the last few seasons, testing has been miserable. Even last year, they got Renault. They had the overheating with the burn marks on, I think it was Stoffel Van Dorn's car, Alonso's wheel coming off. Horrible testing again, despite the fact they didn't have the Honda power unit. Good start to the year. Looked like they could, as Alonso said, could fight. Kind of disappeared to nothing as the season went on. Arrived in testing, and I didn't expect anything from them. And did all right. They did all right in testing. The pace looks good, and they look reliable.
Yeah, they do. It's a dramatic turnaround from the last, 4 years? 5 years? It's a big, big change. Tons and tons of laps in, good pace. A lot of fans might not like this, but their weak point is going to be the driver lineup.
Do you think?
I really do. Sainz is decent, and Norris remains to be seen at some level, but he's obviously there because he's got the skills. But compared to everyone else in the midfield, that's going to be their Achilles heel.
Ooh. See, obviously losing Alonso is going to be a negative, but I think with all the pressure he brings, I thought actually having two drivers like Sainz and Norris would be perfect for them, and it would kind of work out with the pressure off drivers and pressure off the team a little bit.
It could do.
Yeah, I suppose they haven't got the strongest, have they?
It does remain to be seen, but overall, you have to argue it's one of the weaker pairings on the grid.
Just literally running through the grid in my head. Yeah.
Only things to rival that maybe Toro Rosso. Haas, obviously.
Yeah, only 50% of that's terrible, though, isn't it? Sorry, Dan. I was going to be nice about Grosjean tonight as well, and then I realised I don't like him. No, I'm joking.
Don't believe you.
No, it's a fair point. I'd never really looked at it like that.
People mentioning Williams, I mean, on the rookies, Russell is quite a big step better than Norris, but Kubica is a massive unknown. Back when he was in F1 originally, I would say he was far better than Sainz is, but now, no one knows. No one has a clue.
You've got me thinking now. You can tell because I've gone quiet. It takes a lot to shut me up. You might have noticed. But yeah, wow. Okay, I'm going to think about that one. We might come back to that for Q&A, actually, and I'll have a ponder while we're streaming. But what's a good season for McLaren then, Dan? I think we kind of touched on it a little bit in the testing streams, that 6th wouldn't be the end of the world. Even though that is where they finished last year, it would be pretty decent for them given the change in driver lineup. But do you think they can challenge Renault and Haas and whoever else for that top 4 spot?
Ooh, I think that might be a step too far. 4th. I think 6th is more realistic with the aim for maybe 5th. I think the whole team ideals and ethos is just completely flipped this year. I mean, I disagree with what Jonty just said. I'm not going to lie. I think Alonso leaving in the long run will help the team, and I think, okay, this year's lineup isn't a flashy lineup, but I think it's going to be a solid lineup and probably a consistent lineup as well, which I think in the long run, when they're trying to slowly develop this car rather than get instant results, I think that's really going to help them. So I think this year, 5th will be the target, but I see it more being a 6th, maybe even a 7th.
What about you, Jonty? If you were picking, I know I wasn't going to do this for every single team, but a lot of people ask about McLaren. Where do you think they'll end up?
Yeah, it's going to be a 7th or 8th, I think.
There you go.
But again, it's going to be so tight. Like you say,
Yeah.
it could come down to that one crazy race.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody missed the testing streams, I kept saying in those that we could end up in a situation where a team that has a really good weekend could find themselves going from 7th to 5th, and a team that had a bad weekend could see themselves going from 5th to 7th. So it is going to be close in there. But we've talked about Renault, we've talked about Haas, we've talked about Racing Point, we've talked about McLaren. So obviously sticking to the championship order from last year went really well. But let's talk about we'll talk about Alpha. Let's talk Alpha. Why not? Big surprise in week 1. With their pace, Kimi Raikkonen certainly demonstrating some good stuff in there, as did Antonio Giovinazzi, or Giovinazzi, however you want to say it. Not like that, Sean. You get slammed for it. But second week a lot quieter, Jonty. But do you think they could be? I've got them labelled on my little notes here as dark horses ? I think they could. Because Sauber were a bit like that last year, weren't they? Kind of were dark horses at the start of the year. Nobody really knew what to expect, and they grew into the season and became, arguably, the 4th fastest on the grid. Certainly in that fight up there. So, do you think they come into this season again as dark horses? Not a huge amount of change, though, to be fair. Drivers aside.
Logically, you would think that, but just looking at the car that they revealed in testing, there is a hell of a lot going on there. There was a lot of things that we really hadn't seen anyone else trying. A lot of it appeared on other cars as the test went on. But they were doing pretty new and revolutionary stuff with the front wing, with the mounts for the rear wing. There was even a few tricksy bits around the side pods as well. So they could really surprise a lot of people. And I think there could well have been a lot of sandbagging going on from them as well. Crazy as that may seem.
Yeah, I wish I got the times up for Alpha, because there were some big surprises. Didn't Kimi was the first into the 17s, wasn't he? In testing, which surprised a lot of people. Not quite as much as Daniel Kvyat did. And Toro Rosso pace. We'll get onto those in a moment. But I think they have a shout, a genuine shot at hitting that 4th place. I think they do. But I'm just not... I don't know why, but I can't seem to put them ahead of Renault. And possibly not even Haas. I want to. Believe me, I would love to see Sauber, as they were Alpha now, hit that 4th place. And that's nothing against your Renaults and your Haases, but it'd be brilliant to see them take another huge step forward this year, given where that team was a couple of years ago with nearly falling off the grid. But I can't put them 4th, Dan, and I don't know why. But I think it's like I say, Renault should be 4th, and you'd expect Haas to be in there as well. 6th for Alpha, do we think? Or are you confident they can be in that fight for 4th?
No, I think I'm in a similar position to you, but it reminds me so much of Haas last winter, where everyone was thinking, nah, there's no way they're going to make this tremendous jump to fighting for best of the rest. And I think I'm... Unfortunately, I think I do have to agree with you. I think over a whole season, I can't put them in front of Renault, who continuously have got better and better and better since their comeback. And Haas, I just can't, for whatever reason, across an entire season, see Alpha beating Haas. But I think 5th, I can see them being 5th. I think they have a really good lineup this year. Questions, like Jonty says, have other teams caught up with them on the development side of things? That second week of testing was a little bit wishy-washy. So I think 5th for Alfa Romeo, which still is a brilliant achievement, and like you say, considering where they were a couple of years ago, and last year finishing 8th, was it, in the standings? So yeah, I think, I don't think the hype is unjustified, but I don't think best of the rest is quite the target this year.
Yeah. But I want
I
to
see
put
it
them
the other way.
4th.
Yeah. You see, I see things the other way for them. I say over the course of a season, you can't really expect Haas to be Alpha. Haas will be quick, straight away early on. But you look at the development that Sauber did last year. In Australia, you've got a team that was comfortably a Q3 knockout. By Mexico, they were always, they were always a Q1 knockout. By Mexico, they were always fighting in the top 10, Q3. That's an incredible amount of development. And if they can keep that kind of pace going this year, who knows what could happen. Whereas Haas kind of they came out fourth quickest and they kind of roughly stayed there as other teams caught up and passed.
Yeah, I just saw somebody in chat say we're putting everyone in fifth. I didn't catch your name, sorry. But no, we're not putting anybody anywhere. That's the point in the midfield battle. We don't know. We're kind of talking about where they will be fighting for, whereabouts they're going to be. But no, I don't think you can place anybody in that midfield. I don't know with Alpha. I don't know how much of it is a little bit of history with the Sauber thing and seeing that name back. It'd be lovely to see them in the top four, but I think they could surprise. I did listen to what you said, Johnson. I really want to answer it, but I kind of need to move on. So we've still got two teams to get through, and I'll try to keep this not too short, but I know people that want to watch this afterwards don't want to sit through 2 hours of me talking about how great Sauber used to be and how they're a bit of a fan favourite. But Toro Rosso, seen as Alex Albon's popped up on screen there, they are... I'm going to come straight to you on this, Jonty. We were discussing this on the final afternoon stream, weren't we, for testing, and you surprised me with how high you put them on your list at the time. Do you still think that they are going to be one of the big surprises in that midfield this year?
Yes. And that's mainly down to the drivers. Because they've got so much to prove. As you've alluded to before, Albon effectively seems like a placeholder for the tantrum. And Kvyat, after everything he's been through, up and down, in and out of Formula One, he's going to be coming back saying, right, I'm going to show you all you were wrong. They are two drivers who will be wanting it so much, they're going to outperform their car. And that's going to cause a lot of surprises.
I can't remember. What position did you put them in? I'm just trying to think. Because when you did it, I kind of went, really?
I think I put them sixth.
I mean, they were good in testing. They really were. When you think about the pace was solid, as we said kind of about Red Bull, but obviously totally different really in many ways. But the Honda engine was reliable as well. I kind of have to agree with what you said there about Daniel Kvyat. I was saying it all winter, how he's there to prove a point, and I think he'll be gone as soon as somebody else comes along to fill that seat. I think Daniel Kvyat will be out on his backside again. So what he needs to do is, with the likes of, sorry Dan, Grosjean possibly coming to this season under pressure, seats maybe opening up in the midfield, he needs to really show what he can do. So if he can deliver and show what the pace he's got, people always have a go at me when I say this. Daniel Kvyat is bloody quick. I don't care what anybody says. Yes, he's got a hot head. Yes, he's made some pretty big mistakes, but he's a quick guy, and he has demonstrated that plenty of times. Unfortunately, one or two incidents has been what everyone's focused on, but he's a good driver and a quick driver. Not amazing, but he could do a bit like Stroll. He could do a job in that midfield. I don't know if Kvyat fans will hate me for comparing him to Lance Stroll, but never mind, you get what I mean. And Alex Albon, I think, comes into this season massively underrated in that midfield. Quite frankly, Dan, I think you kind of touched on it there when you were talking about, or in testing, when we talk about F2. He was third in the championship, not that far off Norris, who is, quote, the next Lewis Hamilton, however you want to put it, and was in that title fight at one point in the season. So I think Toro Rosso could surprise. I'm not quite as optimistic as Jonty, looking at around sixth place, but I think there'll be a surprise in that midfield.
Sorry guys, I'm going to have to disagree. I do this every year with Toro Rosso, but I think this year in particular, I'm fine with their driver lineup. And yes, in winter testing, I said that I think Albon is underrated. I like Albon, and I think out of the two, I prefer Albon as a driver. But I just see them being the guinea pig team this year. How many times over the winter have we heard, and I know Helmut Marko and Red Bull is not a reliable source of information, but how many times have we heard that Honda is going to almost or even Red Bull are going to sacrifice Toro Rosso to make Red Bull better in terms of development with Honda? So again, I don't think it's going to be an awful year for them. I don't see them languishing at the back, and I do see them picking up points. But I just think, looking at that, I mean, it's impossible to call, but looking at the rest of the midfield, for me, Toro Rosso is the one that unfortunately slips down the order when you've got the likes of Alfa Romeo and McLaren improving. So I'm not as optimistic, boys. I am sorry, but I think they've got a solid lineup. And again, like all the teams, I hope they do well. I just don't really see it.
See, weirdly, despite what I said, I sort of agree with you. I don't. They could well still end up ninth, but I think they'll still surprise. That's how tight the midfield is. That they could really surprise. Be everyone going, wow, where did they come from? What do you mean they're ninth? It really is fourth, certainly fifth down to ninth, but probably fourth down to ninth. I think everyone can kind of work out who we're putting last already. But yeah, I think they could well end up second to last, but I'm not writing them out of anything.
But it's a fair point that you make about the reports we've heard and the statements that we've seen saying that Red Bull would sacrifice Toro Rosso's year for the sake of the development.
Mm.
But based on what we saw in testing, that won't be an issue.
Yeah, that's true. That is. I think I look back to last year and see Gasly's amazing fourth place, but over the course of the year, when they did start developing that Honda more, there were more reliability issues, and they ended up ninth last year. So I think just for me, it's just that little sort of demons from last season that are just holding me back from saying sixth. Sixth a bit far, Jonty. I'm sorry.
I'll just leave you two to it. Yeah, I'm kind of putting off the inevitable here, but we'll do some running order predictions and who we think is going to do what ahead of Australia and into this season as well in just a moment. But there's a reason they're last, not just because they're probably going to finish last, but also because there are a couple of other things we need to talk about regarding Williams other than just the season. So we'll do the preview a bit first, and we'll get onto the newsy stuff with Paddy Lowe. Well, how can I word this without swearing? Not a particularly pleasant winter testing sessions for them, Dan. Not particularly pleasant is the way I'm going to go. Not really miserable might have been a better way to go with it.
Wasn't great, was it? A little bit more optimistic come the end of the season, but as you say, the news after testing wasn't great either. So at least they made it. I still believe that, and part of me wants to say it can't be any worse than last year, and part of me still thinks they might still be able to pick up a couple of points this season. I'd like to be able to say that because, again, Jonty said earlier, we don't really know about their driver lineup, but I have faith in both their drivers. I think it's considering where they are, they're really lucky to have both Russell and Kubica. So I think on their day, maybe if things go their way, they could get a few points. And I don't think a few people saying, "Oh, they won't even be in the 110% rule in qualifying." I don't see that happening. But again, that's probably more optimism and wishful thinking rather than facts or anything like that.
Well, that's how bad Dan thinks they are. The rule's 107%. He thinks they'll be 3% worse
there
than
that.
Wow. Oh, damn, mate. Calm down. Steady. I won't ask you for opinions on the livery. Don't worry. John T, it's not even... Look, they were late for testing. We know they were late for testing. There's so much going on, which we will talk about in a minute, at that team. It's an absolute mess. But even when they got out on track, yes, the mileage in the second week was good, but the pace was not as bad as I expected, but still pretty awful. And then on the Friday, the final day of testing, the team admitted that the car was, quote, too tired to continue running. Wow.
Yeah, it's not great, is it? Yeah, especially someone, I can't remember who it was, but someone on Twitter posted all the long run race simulation times from various teams. So I was bored and I sat and worked out the averages. All on the same C2 tyre, just to see if there's any kind of level you can guess. And it turned out that Williams was 3.4 seconds off the lead on average, which is huge. Even for testing, that's a massive gap. So it is very, very worrying. And then you've got all of the other stuff going on. It's it's not looking good at all.
See, I just did an intake of breath there when you said that. I did a proper, you could tell I'm a mechanic's son, but I did the proper air through teeth thing there. But actually, the sources within the team were saying the car's 2 seconds slower than last year's car, so that would probably check out, to be honest. I just don't know what to say. I don't know what to say on them. I really don't, on testing. They are slow. The car is not good. It's probably, I've not seen anything on the contrary since, but it's probably still illegal. I'm sure they'll get it sorted for Australia, which is only, well, testing starts on Friday, so 5 days, if that. And the car could well still be illegal. I'd like to think, Jonty, even Williams, the absolute horror show that they are at the minute, would be able to make their car legal before Australia.
There was a little bit too much made of the whole illegal car thing for me. There was a couple of aero elements. You got the positioning and shape of the wing mirrors. Yeah, they tried something, turned out not to be acceptable. And the other was sort of an extra element to the lower wishbone to try and control some of that airflow into the side pod area. And Mark Priestley picked it up when he was having a look over the Williams car, and even said then he's not sure if it's going to be legal or not. So they're just trying it out. If someone picks it up, fair enough. It's not that much of an issue. It's not a big thing. It's not like they're going to have to completely redesign the whole barge board or the whole rear wing or something. It's just one element that can be removed.
I know they won't need to, but I think they should. I'd redesign the whole car if I was in their position right now. But yeah, I mean, it depends where you go. Social media is a wash of cheat. I've seen it in chat already. Williams cheating with their illegal car. Fine. If that's what they can do when they cheat, then Jesus Christ. They're going to be in a mess this season, so it's not cheating. I agree with Jonty. They've tried things out and they're not legal, or they are legal, or there's grey areas around there, and they'll get that sorted. But I don't know. They're 10th, aren't they, Dan? There's no other way to put it. They are 10th and probably comfortably 10th this year.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add to that. Yeah, they are 10th.
There you go. Anything you want to add, Jonty, on Williams before we get onto the Paddy Lowe stuff in a moment? Just get the preview out of the way first.
Well, it kind of links in nicely to the Paddy Lowe stuff, because even though they are small things, who's going to be heading up the team to redesign those illegal components when their technical director has gone walkies?
There you go.
Little segue.
Hold that thought, Jonty. We will come back to that in a moment. The reason I'm kind of pushing stuff like that back a little bit, same with Super Chats, is because a few people were a bit annoyed that I decided to stream this instead of do a video. But as you can hear, it's much more fun interacting and chatting about it rather than just me saying, here's the calendar, here are some stats, let's go. But I'm going to try and keep it as short as I can so I can timestamp it nicely for them. So, predictions before we get on to the other stuff. We've already done the Drivers' Championship. 2 of us have gone Hamilton, 1 has gone Leclerc, I believe. I think that's where we went. Constructors... I'm not going to say that to Jonty if you put money on it, because he'll look at the odds and probably say Williams, because you'll make a fortune on it. But who do you think will win the Constructors' Championship, Jonty?
Mercedes.
Dan?
Mercedes.
I'm going Ferrari. I'm sticking with my guns. If anyone wants to know why, I just think that Leclerc is going to be closer to Vettel than Bottas will be to Hamilton, is effectively why. But again, very, very close. 4th place, Dan, if you were to put a prediction on it now, I know it's really hard.
I'll be boring again. Renault.
Jonty?
No, I'll have to go with Renault, because that's who I was backing all winter.
I'm going to go Haas. I'm going to do it. Conflict of interest. I don't want to back them because they've got that, as somebody called him in testing, lettuce head. I don't see it. I don't know why they called him that. But I'm going to go Haas for 4th by like a point, because why not? We're all pretty sure Williams are going to be last, though. I think we're kind of agreeing on that one, so not much point guessing on who's going to be getting the wooden spoon. But let's remove Williams from the grid. They might be tempted for a year, but let's remove them anyway. Who is going to finish second to last? Who's going to get the wooden spatula? Jonty? Have I just made something up?
I think you have, yeah.
Why not?
We'll just stick with the spoon. So at least you can feel a little bit better about yourself. Because if someone comes second to last, it's just terrible. You can't even have a laugh with them. Racing Point.
Dan?
Toro Rosso.
You Toro Rosso hater, you. I knew
Sorry.
you had issues. It's because, yeah. Oh, it's all about Fiat, innit? Funnily enough, I'm going to go Toro Rosso as well. There's your irony.
Wow.
Yeah. Again, fine margins in that midfield, so I'd definitely go with Toro Rosso. I can see we're getting some English and British bias in there. Anybody who thinks there's any kind of British bias on this channel clearly has some anti-British hatred or something like that, and it's maybe time to just grow up. So there we go. We'll leave it at that one. It's not testing, Sean. You can't attack people like that. No, I'm not attacking. I just get bored of bias. You know what I'm like. I get a bit ranty about it. It annoys me. So yes. We'll move on from the preview because I just don't want to start ranting and raving about certain things. But then having said that, we're going to move on to Williams and talk about Paddy Lowe, who left the team a leave of absence for personal reasons. As far as I know, that is still the case. There's been no official word on whether he is gone for good, whether he could return. I'd be surprised if he returns, Jonty, if I'm being perfectly honest. But do you think it's the right decision that they got rid of him, or do you think maybe they should have allowed him the time to try and sort the problems out? Because people seem to keep going, oh, it's 2 seasons, it's 2 seasons. It's not 2 seasons. If you watch the Netflix documentary, 16 months to design and build an F1 car is what they say in that right at the start of it. Paddy Lowe has had 1. This is his first full season, isn't it, on a car that's all his?
Yeah, exactly. And he can't be working with the best of resources and setups there. Because you've got to think that he really does know what he's doing. He wouldn't have been with all these top teams for so long if he didn't. So clearly there's something a bit more. Probably massive disagreements right at the top. He was, thinking logically, he was probably pushing for the Mercedes B team link and got slapped down from higher up.
Yeah, again, we'll talk about the Netflix documentary in a bit, but in that, Claire Williams said them becoming a B team would be over her dead body. So that's never going to happen. That is never, ever going to happen as long as she's in charge. But the problem is, Paddy Lowe, according to all these leaks that have come out of the team, which I still think, by the way, when people, frankly, excuse the language, but when people shit on their own team like that, I think that's really out of order, and also points out where your issues are. But they were saying that these leaks that he wasn't allowed the time. The commercial side of the team was leaning on the development side, the aero side, and so he wasn't allowed to get on with his job. So his hands were quite tied in that respect. So I think I said it in my video. I'm not saying he shouldn't have gone, but I don't think he should have been first out the door. And I saw somebody actually in the chat there just say he should have gone down with the sinking ship. Do you think he's walked, Jonty, or do you think Claire's had a word?
I think he's had the boot. I really do, because of that stubbornness, because of that desperate clinging to the historical name, which in the modern era of F1, they just can't keep going with. They really can't.
What do you make of it all, Dan? Do you think Paddy Lowe was sacked, or do you think he walked, or do you think it was a mutual decision? One of those. Oh, I hate that line. I really do. It was a mutual decision.
I think back a couple of years ago when he joined the team, how much positive energy there was about Paddy Lowe, Mercedes designer, coming to Williams. Now it baffles me. It really does, and I still think Williams needs someone like Paddy Lowe, and I think they're going to struggle to find someone else. So I'm more inclined to say he walked. It's anyone's guess, really, but I think it's just for me that they need him. I do believe that, and even if this car needs to get in the bin, I still think he's a perfect candidate to help them build a great car. So I'm unsure.
With that mutual decision thing, I've even experienced it myself in the past. It's a case of, look, leave or you're sacked. And leaving
Yeah.
looks better on paper.
Like jump before you're pushed kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to put the question to you guys. I'm going to come straight to you with it, Jonty, and I'll put it to chat as well. I haven't put slow mode on, so the mods will hate me if people start putting one-word answers in, but here we go. Time for Claire Williams to go. Do you think, Jonty, in your opinion?
Absolutely, yes. And we saw evidence of that last year with Williams losing their title sponsor and ignoring the potential dubiousness of Rich Energy aside. That deal, as far as we were led to believe, was done, dusted, all ready to go. And something she has done has caused them to walk and go to Haas. That's not good management. Certainly not in that position.
Chat is fairly unanimous with that one. There's a couple saying no, but pretty much everyone's saying yes. What about you, Dan? Do you think she should go?
Here come the dislikes, mate. Sorry. I think they should keep her. Sorry. I've got to be really careful what I say here. I still think, I know it's gone bad even just last year, but it was just last year. And even 2017, it wasn't great, but they still were able to get a podium. And I want a couple more years. I think at least this season, let's see how she can deal with a crazily sinking ship. And with this Paddy Lowe incident, let's see how she deals with that. And at the end of this year, then potentially, but I still think she needs a little bit more time. Sorry for the dislikes, mate.
No. I'm just blocking people in chat who are a little bit thick, I think. Don't know who they are because they won't appear on the main screen, so it's fine. But yeah, no, my argument is that, first of all, I don't think she will. I don't think she'll ever go anyway. If she goes, it'll be because she's decided to go. Absolutely. They're not going to sack her. But
yeah.
I think my issue is in most lines of business, and as we've seen with other teams in the past, when there is an issue in management where people's hands are tied, as Paddy Lowe's were, where sponsors are walking out the door, they're struggling financially, and things are all falling apart, the buck stops with the manager. And I know that's a real cop-out of an answer because I've been in situations where managers have been sacked when it is not the manager's fault. But it's her team. She is managing that team. So she is ultimately responsible. And that's the same in so many places, in your day-to-day jobs as well as the world of F1. So I think either if Sir Frank isn't going to let her go, and the shareholders aren't going to let her go, then they need to bring somebody in to help, somebody to manage the racing side of things, manage that. She can carry on in a role, where she's handling the business side and whatever, even though sponsors aren't attracted to the team, but that's probably more because of where they are rather than the name, because Williams is a historic name in F1. So she can go on to do all of that and keep with the business side, but I think they need to bring somebody in, and I keep saying Eric Boulier because I think he'd be the perfect person to bring in to just steady the ship, take control of the team, and run the racing side of things. I think that is what they need to do. They won't. I still think they need to consider, they don't have to necessarily do it, but consider the B team route, if not the B team route in the same way that Toro Rosso are and that Alpha or Haas, whichever way you want to look at it, are, but some kind of bigger agreement with Mercedes where they get a bit of help with some of the stuff they need help with. Ultimately, something's got to change, I guess is what I'm saying, Jonty. There's got to be something changing, and I don't think Paddy Lowe is going to be enough.
Yeah, absolutely, something's got to change. You're right, it's not Paddy. I mean, there's one other element. You look at them as people. If you watch the Williams documentary, you can see how different Frank and Claire are. They are massively different people. Yes, I know one's man, one's woman. So they're going to have different opinions on things and see things differently. But their personalities and the way they deal with problems and conflicts are so different. He is very, very stern and just focus, get it done. If you need this, you'll get it to get the job done. And Claire's more of a nice handholdy way of dealing with management, or at least that's the way it appears. So she definitely needs someone in the middle who can just make the orders and deal with the people on the shop floor. because evidently I don't think she can. Michael would be bomb thirdly for that, to be honest. I think he's
He's a
in
good
a much
shout.
better position. He's used to dealing with a low budget, and you could argue at Williams it will be higher than he had at Force India. So he can do more of what he's good at.
This is why I love doing this channel, differing opinions. Rick says Eric Boulier is the man they need. Hell, even Maritza Riva is a good shout at this point in time. And then Finn's followed that right underneath with Eric Boulier was a part in ruining McLaren, so I don't think he's a good idea. That's why I love this channel. Differing opinions. And you both make good points. The thing I would say, though, to Finn is that Eric Boulier did a very good job at Lotus. I know that's two very different teams, but yeah, that's the only thing I'd probably say. Rayson did put a point in the chat, and I want to ask him a question, whether a reply or not. I'm sure he will. He says, honestly, the only thing that can fix Williams is 2021. I'll put it to Rayson, but I'll put it to you first, Dan, and probably put it to Jonty as well. Do you think the team need to not write off this season and next season, but maybe just do the bare minimum for the next couple of years and put all focus on that rule change when whatever the rule changes are get signed off?
I'd love to say yes. And I think we're all hoping that 2021 is this big overhaul of regulation. But even last year, we saw that maybe it might not be as much. But I do think at Williams, they need to do something. I know we've spoke about they maybe should have gone for a Honda deal a couple of years ago. Maybe, like we've just said, maybe they should go for a B team. But something major has to change there, because if they keep doing what they're doing now, it's only going to get worse. So maybe that is a sensible thing to start looking to 2021 and really trying to nail the regulations just like they did in 2014.
Conte?
It's a good idea. You know, it's nice to think about, but it's hanging so much hope on 2021 being a huge turnaround. And there is the worry that it might go a bit too far with regards to cost of development, which could just leave them back in the same position. If you look at those 3 proposed ideas that came up last year, they're very, very complex. There's a hell of a lot of very expensive carbon fibre work that's going to go into that. You know, the current cars, by comparison, are very simple. You know, and cost just goes up and up and up the more complex something is to manufacture. So that's a worry.
Let's move on from Williams, because I could chitter about them all night, because I do feel for them. I know not everybody does, but I do. Where we go? 2 things I want to do, and I want to do Q&A as well, because we haven't done a Sunday stream for about 6 weeks or something like that. So, but I want to discuss 2 things. First of all, points for fastest lap. Now, this hasn't been confirmed, contrary to reports elsewhere. This hasn't been confirmed. It is heading to the F1 Commission to be voted on, and it needs unanimous approval. If one person turns around and goes, nah, not happening, it doesn't go through. It needs unanimous approval. It's been met with, surprisingly, a bit of a split. Well, maybe not surprisingly, it's Formula One. Fans don't like change. But yeah, it's certainly got a few people talking. It seems to split opinion. Do you think it's a good thing, Dan, or do you think it's just another unnecessary change?
I'm fine with it. I do agree. I think it's a little bit unnecessary. I think the only real change it's going to potentially bring is, say someone is maybe 11th, not really looking to get points, and at the end we see a flurry of extra pit stops. People in the midfield maybe have had a difficult race trying to get that fastest lap. But apart from that, I don't really think it's going to change a fat lot, and I didn't think we needed it. So I'm neither here nor there, really.
Do you know what I think? Not really, don't care. But I liked it when I first heard it. And then when I pondered it a little bit, because I thought, oh, it works in Formula E, it works in Formula 2, it works in other series. Yeah, why not? And then I pondered it for a bit and realised that actually it's sort of pointless for Formula 1, because the field, you know, we've just talked about how close it is, but the midfield is close, but the front 3 are very much the front 3. Really, the field isn't close enough for it to be that big of a deal or that exciting, because the way I look at it is, the majority of the time, we're going to see the gap from let's assume both Ferraris, both Mercedes and both Red Bulls finish the race. That's top 6 locked out. you would probably guess that first through to fifth are not going to have a big enough gap between each other to be able to go for that, to take that risk and go for fastest lap. However, the driver in sixth place, so let's say Pierre Gasly in sixth place will probably have about 30, 40 seconds plus back to seventh place. So we're just going to see the last one running in the top three car setting the fastest lap each race. That's my take on it, John T. It's not something I'm completely against, but it's just going to be an extra point for one of the top three teams, because I genuinely do not believe that the likes of Renault and Co are going to be close enough, the field's close enough for them to just slap on a softer tyre and set the fastest lap.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those things where it's only for the top 10, so only people who are in the points already, and like I say, barring any big dramas in a race, you can realistically assume that Red Bull are going to get all 21 of them, because they're going to be in a position where they can go stick a fresh set on, come out, still have 15, 20 seconds to the car behind them, and then just banzai it till the end. It's really not going to make that much difference at all, unfortunately.
See, I forgot what I was going to say. No, there we go. It's in my head there. These numbers aren't exact because I literally ran over it quickly before the stream and quickly counted up. So I might be one or two out, but 7 times since the turn of the hybrid era, a car outside of the top 3 set the fastest lap, or as the top 3 as we know it now. So if we say some seasons had 21 races, some seasons had 19, so let's say 20 races a season, that's 100 races. 93% of the time, that fastest lap went to a top 3 running car. So it's a pointless change. Ta-da, pun. But it's not something I'm totally against. I just don't think it works in Formula 1 in its current state. It works in the likes of Formula E because it's close, because anybody can set the fastest lap. But I saw people on Twitter going, it's a great idea if they open it up to the top 20, because then Williams can go and put on a set of the softest tyre and set the fastest lap. Nah, that's just not going to happen. It'd be brilliant, but it's just not going to happen. So I just see it as an extra point for one of the top 3 teams. And I kind of hate the idea of it deciding a championship as well, which is why I'm glad they didn't go with the pole position one, to be honest, John T. I think deciding the championship on a Saturday would just... Imagine title on the line. Yeah, it only needs 1 point, so it's probably highly likely to go to the driver at the top of the championship at that point. But you lose your title decider on a Saturday afternoon, so that's your audience halved for a Sunday.
Yeah, that's another good point. And yeah, it does seem a lot like trying to get a bit more action out of what's happening on track, and it's not going to work, unfortunately. It works perfectly for spec series, or I know there are some differences in Formula E, but not massively. It's still effectively a spec series where it's all down to the driver. That's when it matters, and that's when it actually means something.
Yeah. By the way, this this change came days after Chase Carey said that he wouldn't gimmick up Formula 1. Read into that what you will. But Netflix. Who'd have thought we'd be talking about Netflix on an F1 stream? Have you seen the Netflix documentary, John T?
I haven't yet, no.
Dan?
Wow, John T, that is terrible. Although I've got one left, so yes, I have. But no spoilers for the last episode. I want to know who wins the championship.
Spoiler alert. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. I don't tend to, some Formula 1 documentaries are brilliant. I love the Williams film, I guess it is. But I'm not really that fussed by them, but I really, really enjoyed it, and I binge-watched. I've seen a lot. I binge-watched all 10 episodes. And I really enjoyed it. My only real gripe with it was very over-dramatized, if that makes sense. So it was all a little bit over the top, as documentaries and films tend to be. But little stupid things, and I'm going to sound like such an old man. Thank you, Daniel, in the chat. The sound effects were stupid, though. That is exactly the point I was just going to make. We as fans know what sound 2 tyres make when they rub against each other on track. We know what sound, if you like, you hear when a car hits a barrier. It is not a whopping great explosion style bang. Carbon fibre probably does make a glass-like sound, but it's not that clear. It just was so over-dramatised. But the stories, getting to see those midfield fights because Ferrari and Mercedes didn't bother and didn't want to be part of it, I think that actually was a good thing for the showdown, to be perfectly honest, because that meant the focus was on the midfield, so we got some real stories in there.
Yeah, I agree. And obviously, lots around Haas. I mean, which part of me was great to see. Part of me also thought, Gunther's got some stern words against my boy sometimes. But no, it was great seeing a different side to Formula One. Yes, it was over dramatised. My biggest pet peeve, which again is stupid, but was the fact it wasn't in chronological order. That really messed with my head. Like in the first episode, we'd see races from, well, the first episode isn't a good idea because I think that was just Melbourne, but the second episode, we were seeing races in Mexico. And then the second to last episode, we were talking about Austria. And I'm thinking, well, hang on a second, what's going on here? And then sometimes it would preview the next episode. So, next episode is about Charles Leclerc and future drivers. And then it was nothing to do with it. And it was silly little things like that really wound me up. That was so pointless. But overall, I did enjoy it, yes. But it was slightly over the top. But is that really a massive issue? Not really.
PCM says also fake commentary.
Yes.
Blake,
yes.
They were clearly reading from a script, weren't they? But no.
And then, go on.
I was just going to say that there are little bits that you kind of look at and go, oh, for God's sake. But as a whole, I really enjoyed it. Really, really enjoyed it. Gunther Steiner can flipping damn well swear, can't he? Wow.
He can.
I kind of want to involve you in this, Jonty, but I don't really know. Is it something you're looking forward to watching?
Yeah, I am looking forward to watching it just to see a lot more of what's going on behind the scenes. But the way most of these documentaries are, I'm going to get the feeling that I could have written it myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'll tell you what you will enjoy, the awkward turtle between Christian Horner and Cyril Abiteboul. Ooh, there were a couple of good moments in there. But yeah,
I was just chuckling. Someone in the chat nicknamed him Squirrel Irritable.
Yeah. It's definitely worth the watch, mate, if you can get to see it. I sound like it's at the cinema. But yeah, it's really good. It's a really good documentary. Like I say, it's a bit over the top, but it's kind of expected from Netflix and documentaries. And also, I'm not going to sing it, Daniel Ricciardo, what a song. What a tune from Daniel Ricciardo, all about his scrotum.
Everyone needs a song about that.
I just need a moment. Sorry. And some good stuff in there as well from Chris Medland and Will Buxton. And the way they, kind of on a serious note, after that joke about Daniel Ricciardo's scrotum, the way they handled all of that with Jules Bianchi was just spot on. No over dramatising there because I didn't need to. So yes, definitely worth a watch if you've not seen it in chat. I will, if Jonty can't get to see it, I will find a way to make sure he can. Definitely. Yes.
Oh, yeah, it will be.
Definitely. Right then. I'm going to take a few questions from chat. You can ask us anything, ideally F1 related, but, feel free. The slides, by the way, were supposed to come up randomly rather than in chunks of teams, but for some reason it's not working. So apologies for that. Not that it really matters. I'll take a couple of your questions because we're not overrunning. I knew this was going to run a bit longer anyway. So Ericsson in the bathtub. Yes. That was brilliant. I'm just waiting for some comment. I did see some questions earlier. Actually, no, I'll tell you what. I can't shout you out because I can't remember your name, but somebody asking for our ones to watch this season, a team and a driver. I'm going to go for, in terms of driver, I'm going to say Lance Stroll. Upset a few people, but I'm going to say that just, I'm not going to keep repeating myself. He's not the awful driver people think he is, and he will surprise in that midfield. But team-wise, I'm going to go with Alpha, I think. Dan, your one to watch team and driver.
I'm going to agree with Alpha, mainly because I don't think there's going to be any massive surprises apart from them. My driver to watch, though, is Giovinazzi. I think he's going to do well. I think he's going to impress a lot of people, and I think he could potentially beat Raikkonen come the end of the year. So, yeah, Gio for me.
What about you, John T?
The team to watch, I'm going to say McLaren. They're going to be a lot quicker than people realise. And your driver to watch, I'm going to have to say Gasly. He's going to take the fight much closer to Verstappen than even I think. He's a lot quicker than you remember.
Yeah, good shouts. Race said, you asked me a question, I answered. I didn't say anything, did you forget? I didn't forget at the time. I just started dealing with idiots and then kind of forgot after that. So, yes, apologies. So I didn't see your answer, but you sent me it on Discord and I'll, oh, no, I did. I think you said something along the lines of they can't write off 2021 because of the money and the sponsors. I think is what you said. I'm sure you'll post it again. But yeah, like I said when I made the point, not necessarily write it off, but just do the minimum they can, which is kind of probably what they're doing anyway. But yeah. What do you think it would be like as a Williams fan in the 90s who came back to F1 after 20 years not watching a sport? Oh,
depressing.
Could you imagine? Like not even reading anything about Formula One, not watching anything, and then the last race you see is the final race in 1999 or something like that, and then you come back and you look at where McLaren and Williams are. I mean, I keep saying it. I said it in the testing streams. As a kid, if someone had told me that McLaren and Williams would be down the back end of the grid, laughed in their face. No way. They were two of the top teams in Formula One along with Ferrari. So there's nowhere to believed it. And yeah, it's kind of how far they've fallen. But I suppose to kind of turn that question around a little bit, McLaren, I think, can turn it around. They can find their way back towards the sharp end of the grid. I don't know about winning championships again. I'm not sold on that one. I'm not convinced they will. But they'll make their way forward again. Williams, I'm not quite so sold on. Sadly, I'd love it, but I'm just not sure. I'm being depressing, I know. Yeah. Sorry, but
yeah, that's the only way it would be.
But if you're a Williams fan, you wouldn't go 20 years without watching, says a Mighty Dash. Very good. Best team principal, I saw somebody throw my way a moment ago. I'm going to miss your name, so apologies. There it is. Kieran, best team principal. I'm Christian Horner for me, hands down. Dan?
I would say Gunther Steiner, but after that documentary, he said some nasty things about my boy. So
doesn't deserve to eat.
I think exactly. I'll go Toto Wolff. I think what he's done at Mercedes is very impressive.
Jonty?
On the grid now, I'd probably have to say Horner because he's been there since they started. It's all his work.
Oh, if we're talking history. Oh. No, I'm not. No, because we'll be here all night. No way. I'm not
history. It's Ross Brawn, no question.
Oh. We'll agree to disagree on that one before I even give my answer. But yeah, I am going to cough out and not do that one because I know we're going to end up. A couple of people very happy to see Ted. If you did miss the news, if you're a Sky Sports subscriber, Ted is going nowhere. He is signed up for this year on Sky Sports F1. So good stuff. Paul Stoddart, that's a name. Sorry, some names coming in now that have caught me out. Paul Stoddart. Wow. Freddie Vasseur, good shout. From Andras, and a couple of others have said that as well. Very good shout. What he did at Sauber to turn them around. Yeah.
Stoddart just gets a special mention for all his continued efforts.
ST saying Sean hour's gone. No, it wasn't. I was on time. Don't start. The preview was an hour, and we did it in an hour. So there you go. I win. I think we actually overran on that as well. But yeah, couple more questions before we disappear because
Chats.
Oh yes. Super chats. Thank God you're here, Jonty. I will actually take the opportunity while I'm just getting this opened up and have a look. just to say thanks again for everything over pre-season testing. Donations, I think with all donations in, including super chats and PayPal, I think we were just over $2,000, which was absolutely flipping incredible. So thank you so much for that once again. That is going to a new PC. Jonty's already got me a list all sorted out of the stuff I need, and I'm going to be heading over to I was going to say Birmingham then, and I didn't mean to say Birmingham. Staffordshire.
You dare.
to get that sorted and bought and built and everything like that. So thank you very much, guys, for that. But Sup S says, won't Toro Rosso be sacrificed by Red Bull and then they will end up in 9th place? I think we kind of touched on that one, didn't we? In the way that testing went, perhaps Red Bull won't need, or Toro Rosso won't need to sacrifice themselves for Red Bull. So that could be interesting. But obviously, I still fully expect that if they get to Australia, once everything's turned up and there are issues, Toro Rosso will be sacrificed very quickly. So that could be what puts them 9th. Is my view on that one. Capewell Garage says, make McLaren great again. Absolutely. Thank you very much for your contribution. And Andrew, he's given us a running order, I think. Yes, he has. Thank you for your contribution. He says, I got Ferrari, Red Bull, Merc, Haas, Renault, Alpha, Racing Point, McLaren, Toro Rosso, Williams, with Williams falling below the 107% rule at least once. Okay.
Oh, that's a bold one. We should have that one for bingo.
The thing is, though, with the 107% rule, even if Williams fall outside it, they'll still be allowed to race. As long as they've set some sort of time in practice, they'll let them in, because we can't... Formula One aren't going to allow, unless there are technical issues, obviously, an 18-car grid. So
yeah, it's such a massive gap that it just doesn't apply these days. I'm not even sure why they brought it back. I worked it out with teams doing a 122 at Barcelona. 107% would be a 130.
Yeah.
No one's going to be 8 seconds slower.
Isn't the 107% rule as well in Q1 only? So before the big boys have really turned things up. So yeah. Jose says, what race will be the most entertaining this year? That's a question we got last year. I'll let you have a think about this one, Jonty, because you think you said Paul Ricard last year. But Dan, what do you reckon for most exciting race of 2019? I went with Canada when we got asked this question last year, and I was absolutely spot on.
Blimey.
Which way would you go? A lot to choose from.
Jesus. Yeah, there's a few, isn't there? I don't really know why I'm trying to overthink this, but I'm gonna back up what I said at the end of last season, and I'm gonna say Abu Dhabi.
Damn it, that's what I was going to say.
Sorry.
Other than Abu Dhabi, Jonty, which one's going to be the most exciting?
I think I'm going to have to say Monza. With them following closer.
Yeah.
That could be and the extra powerful DRS, it could be very interesting.
I'm not saying. I'm not. And it's not a cop-out. It's because I agreed. People in chat, there'll be people that are new to the channel that didn't, but people at the time said I need to stop making predictions and I need to stop saying that races are going to be good, because generally, when I say they're going to be good, they're going to be crap. So Australia next week is going to be awful. Absolutely dreadful. And every race this year is going to be horrible, and the championship's going to be won by Saturday afternoon. I don't know. I really have no idea. But yeah, I'm going to stick to my word and not go saying races are going to be brilliant when everything went wrong last year. Like I said, Canada, I said, was going to be brilliant. I think it said Russia was going to be terrible. It was a good race. So I did it a few times last year, so I'm not going to do it. A few people shouting Brazil. Monaco. Kids love F1. Monaco. Well, you never know. We forget about chaos, maybe. USA, Austin, Baku, Spa, USA, Baku, Brazil, Belgium, Brazil, Bahrain. Oh, some real differing opinions. That's cool. Race says, 107% is Q1 only. So there we go. I'm going to take one more. One more question. Why not? Take it to a nice round half an hour.
On that races thing, you just have to think, because we all hate Abu Dhabi. It's always dull and boring. And last year, it was a contender for best race.
I do hate bull and boring races. They're terrible. There we go. That's what we're going to finish off on. Christopher says, surprise podium, question mark. Depends which way you want to look at it. I think I went with Kimi Räikkönen as my wild card, but after what we saw in testing, I don't know if that's that much of a wild card anymore. But I think I also put Perez and Stroll on that list of podium finishers for 2019, so I'd stick with them. People saying Hulk, I'm not convinced that any of the Renault boys on the podium is going to be a surprise. I think they've got a shot at least one, if not a couple, this season. So, Raikkonen, Stroll, Perez, somewhere around there. I'll stick with my predictions. Come to Jonty first this time. I keep putting Dan on the spot, so.
I'm going to say Lance Stroll.
Yeah. Dan? Hang on.
Let's end the stream really well here. I think, it's not really a surprise, is it? But Romain Grosjean, he's got it. He's one of the best. He's going to be on the podium this year multiple times. There you go. That's how you end a stream.
Yeah, he's just going to be on the podium because that's where he will land.
See, so much better than what I was going to say. I was just going to say that he's going to finish on the podium because he's wiped everybody else out, but that's even better. Lands on the podium. No, I'd like to see K-Mag get one again. I won't mind K-Mag on the podium. That'd be good to see. Yeah. I think flipping Grosjean. I think we'll leave it there for this stream then. Thank you very much, Dan, for coming along. It's been nice and chilled and casual, and good to get chatting again. Sunday streams are back. 5 days to Australia, mate. Are you prepared for it on your channel?
No, I don't think you can be prepared, can you? But no, thanks for having me, man, and good luck this week.
No worries, mate. We've only had 15 weeks to get ready and I'm still not, so it's okay. And thank you very much as always, Jonty. It's been a pleasure. We need to talk because we need to sort out when I'm going to come over and get this PC put together. So I need to buy it all first, but yeah. It's been good fun.
We'll sort it out. Yeah, great fun. And now it really feels like the season's back.
Yes, 5 days, like I say, 5 days. I will obviously talk to you both very, very shortly, I'm sure. But for now, I'll say goodbye.
Yep. Goodbye, everyone. Next time we do this, it's after a race.
Yes. That's super exciting. What a way to sign that one off from Jonty to get me all buzzing, ready for the new season. Yes. Season launch apparently on Wednesday in Australia, I guess that is, says Erudite. So awesome stuff. There has been a little schedule scrolling along on screen, as you will have seen, so you'll know that I am back for the season. Kicks off on Thursday on the channel, but I will be back on Tuesday with another video. That'll be this week's rundown, and then Thursday is the race preview. Friday, I'm still undecided on the Friday roundup, whether it'll be a stream or a video. Probably just a stream around breakfast time in the UK, just after FP2 has finished, so I'll probably do that one. Qualifying watch along on the Saturday, kicking off from 5:30 in the morning UK time. Oh, I love Australia. And I've caved. I will be doing the qualifying reports again this season. That will be up. I'm going to aim to get those up after the Channel 4 highlights of qualifying, because I don't want to put too many spoilers out there for people that can't watch along or can't see them live. So that's going to be on the Saturday. And then on Sunday will be the race watch along again from 5:30 in the morning. Then the cool down room, our cheesy cool down room, will be around about 45 minutes to an hour after the Grand Prix is finished. And then, of course, there'll be the debrief, the race review, if you like, on the Monday morning, or the Monday afternoon, probably Monday tea time in the UK, or dinner time, whatever you want to say. But yes, I will be back on Tuesday. Don't forget to drop the video a like, as Jonty's saying in chat. And don't forget to subscribe if you are new to the channel. Absolutely tons coming up this season. I'm going to go balls deep. Lovely way to end the stream, but that's what we're going to do. Really go for it this year. And let's see if we can get to that big 100k. Oh, it's a big one, but we will try. And don't forget as well, Tuesday, 4 p.m. for the rundown. So I think I'm just going to round it off and leave it there. There's so much I do want to talk to you about, but I'm going to have to leave it, and I'll let you know more next week. Don't forget you can follow me over on social media. Links to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and of course to Discord are all in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.